Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment you are going to hear the voice of a man who will tell you some tremendously important facts, some amazing facts. The voice of a man who has made a discovery that is revolutionizing human thought, changing human lives, bringing happiness and success where discontent and failure were before.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I am so incredibly excited. I've been working to get this interview for several years now, but I finally get a chance to speak to Sal Rachele. Many of you know who Sal Rachele is already, but Sal is a pioneer in the human potential field. In the mid-70s, he became interested in developing his psychic and intuitive abilities and took Silva Mind Control training. Sal later developed his own unique method called Alpha-Theta Programming, which is designed to reprogram the subconscious mind and unlock creative potential within. He became involved with Leonard Orr's Rebirthing and Jim Leonard's Integrative Rebirthing, a yoga of breath and conscious purification. In the 80s, he did extensive work contributing, combining guided meditation, original piano music, and psychic counseling in his work. He recorded several cassettes and one CD of his original New Age classic melodies. In 1994, he published his first book, Life on the Cutting Edge, a self-help manual with extensive illustration, diagrams, and charts. Numerous projects later, he became aware of his connection to Leah, a sixth density Venetian, and the Arcturians, a collective consciousness from seventh density Arcturus, and began consciously channeling information from these entities. In 2004, he began developing a type of healing based on the sacred sound current, or NOM, and he was given guidance on creating initiations based on his work. To interview Sal is amazing because he has covered so much material, and some of my favorite books, Earth Changes and Beyond, Soul Integration, The Real History of the Earth, Earth Awakens, Prophecy 2012 to 2030. He is on the cutting edge of discussing the things we talk about on the channel, which is the new Earth. And I'm just honored to get a chance to speak with him ever so briefly. So welcome to the Reality Revolution, Sal.
Thank you. It's wonderful to finally do this.
Yeah. So you've obviously been doing this for a very long time, and it seems that you've adapted and you've covered a lot of different information. So just for people that maybe don't know who you are, just tell us a little bit about your origin story and how it all got started.
Well, I actually got started in this lifetime in the 1970s. I took the Silva method and various other meditation classes in the 70s. And started having what today we would call downloads, where information comes pouring into what I would call the superconscious mind. And then from there, it gets stored in the subconscious and brought to the conscious as needed. And I had experiences of what was called the living Christ. Those are the words that I received when I had a tremendous download. And today we would call that Christ consciousness. And I also proved to myself early on the existence of extraterrestrials. I was tapping in using Silva method and other meditation methods into the consciousness of different teachers around the world, including Osho, which was Rajneesh at the time, and J. Krishnamurti and others. And I very quickly discovered that some of these teachers had direct contact with extraterrestrials. And so then later I had another amazing download where I was shown the future of Earth and the awakening that was going to be taking place around the world. And also I was shown both the light and dark players in the human drama, including the reptilians and all the so-called negatives, but I was also reassured that 80% of the universe is benevolent and 20% is malevolent. So the vast majority of consciousness in this universe is what the Raw Collective would call service to others as opposed to service to self. I know you've done a series with the Raw Collective and the Law of One materials. So yes, on Earth, it's kind of flipped the other way. About 80% seems to be service to self and 20% service to others. And so, of course, we look at all the greed and selfishness in the world, and it kind of makes sense. But we're here to change that. And so I'm ready and willing to assist in any way I can to help breathe some optimism into some of the listeners, because I know that if you turn on the television, you're getting a massive dose of negative programming unless you have one of the very few channels that doesn't harp on the negative. So
you make a very interesting point. There's a feeling that the earth is flipped and it's 80% service to self, but you can still see that movement for service to others. And so, and some argue that the earth itself, it just is structured in a way it creates service to self entities for survival, for a variety of other reasons, the systems that they're brought into. And when I'm talking with other people, there's a feeling of helplessness, like we can't get beyond this. And so I get a positivity from your books that we can escape and move on and awaken to a larger consciousness and new dimensions, new densities. Please give me hope. Tell me what we can do to move to that higher level, that new earth that we've always been talking about.
Well, I think I'm going to put the cart before the horse, so to speak, here, and go to really the highest levels of consciousness first. And then maybe we can work our way from there into the state of the world, because as it says in the Bible, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all things shall be added. And I think that's one of the best passages in the Bible, because it gives you a roadmap. It says, go to the source within, go to God within, the kingdom of heaven within, as we're told over and over by Jesus and others, that the kingdom of heaven is within. And what does that really mean? It means that who we are is this vast, creative, intelligent, spiritual being, and we happen to be having a human experience, which by its nature seems to be limiting and imperfect. And so the idea is to come from this higher consciousness as we are living our day-to-day human lives with all of the challenges involved with the monetary system, which is almost the exact opposite of higher spiritual principles, this idea of the haves and the have-nots, and this tiny percentage of humanity having half the world's wealth and all of that. To be able to turn that around and say, hey, we can live in a spiritual economy, one that is based on lifting every human being to a higher standard. And so that's a part of it. And how do you do that? Well, you have to do the work on yourself. That's primarily what you and I are all about, is giving people resources to show people, hey, there's a vast world out there of ways to raise our vibration, raise our consciousness. And whether it's meditation, yoga, channeled material, different techniques like timeline healing, the one I've been working with for about the last 15 years. And we live in the most amazing time, because now we have social media, internet platforms, websites. We have all of these ways to reach more people. I'll never forget when I did an interview in Russia many years ago. And within 3 months, there were 300,000 hits. And I was thinking, 50 years ago, not even Jesus could have done that. Reached that many people that quickly. And so our technology is amazing. We are literally doing the greater things that Jesus spoke of. We're able to he was able to reach a few hundred people directly and a few thousand indirectly. We're reaching hundreds of thousands of people. You've probably had similar stories on podcasts and things. So we're really able to bring the good news, instead of the, who's bombing who, somewhere in the world. It's like, oh, let's all do a meditation for world peace. And I know transcendental meditation started a lot of that back in the 60s and 70s, where they would document how the world became more peaceful after they gathered and did their group meditations. They literally took the statistics of crime and violence, and every time the TM people got together and meditated, the incidences of violence and negativity went down. It was a complete correlation every time.
Yeah, I'm a
And
big
I
believer in.
participated in some of that too in the 80s, you know, with different these Om circles for world peace. And you know, the next day after one of our Om circles, they signed a peace treaty in the Middle East, you know.
I keep seeing it. I'm a big believer. I try to hold a group meditation every Saturday. And I do. After I do it, I see something positive happening. It's just not in my head. I'm actually seeing the fruition of these meditation. I believe strongly that we are having an influence on the
And
planet.
of course we are, because we are one being expressing through billions of life forms. That's a hard one for our intellectual minds to grasp.
It is.
How can we be one being expressing through different bodies? But it's true. And modern science, you know, the non-locality principle of quantum physics has basically proven that that's true. There really is no separation. As Dr. David Bohm and J. Krishnamurti said, the observer is the observed, which is a really deep statement that basically says there is no separation. We are not separate from the trees, from the plants, from the animals, from other human beings.
So you have done a lot of different channelings, and a lot of the information that you get about our transition into fourth density, a new earth, a higher dimension comes from these channelings. So I'd love to discuss this and share with the viewers what some of the stuff that you've discovered through these channelings. So a lot of it unlocks some of the myths about the entrance into the new earth. You answer some questions about what actually happens when we shift into the fifth dimension or fourth density or whatever. That, you know, there it seems like different entities have different terms for it, essentially,
Right.
but they're very similar, right? So first of all, explain the from what you understood, are we moving through dimensions, densities? Where are we at now? Did it all start in 2012? Or did
Well,
it end in 2012? Like sometimes you
let's
get
kind
this,
of put the 2012 into perspective, because a lot of
yeah,
people were disappointed that there wasn't some rapture or heavenly intervention happening on
yeah.
those 3 days, and all of a sudden we're transported into a higher dimension. And of course, that's not how it works, because this is a free will universe. And people were not ready for that type of experience as a collective. Now, maybe a few people had some high experiences during that period. I was at
Mhm.
Chichen Itza in Mexico during the precession of the equinox.
Wow.
But really, what it's about is time is a function of free will. And so a lot of the prophecies and predictions are coming through. I'd say close to 100% of them are coming true, but they're not happening in the timetable that most of us have predicted. The very best seers, you know, all the way to just somebody who gets a vision. We see what's happening, but we don't see the timetable for how fast it's going to happen. And Mike, when things didn't happen like miraculously on those 3 days, I asked my guides, "Well, what's really happening here?" And they said, "Well, people are waking up, but it's a process. It doesn't just happen instantly. We have so much negative conditioning in our subconscious minds that has to be cleared out. And even now, I mean, you can see what's happening in the world
Mhm.
is truly the word apocalypse is the accurate word to describe what's happening, because the word apocalypse means the revealing of all that has been hidden, or lifting of the veil. That's
Mhm.
the literal translation for apocalypse. And look at the world. Everything is coming out, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, we realize, oh, we've been enslaved, whether it's by negative extraterrestrials or a so-called power cabal or power elite or whatever name you want to give to it. It all comes from the belief that we can be controlled by forces outside of ourselves. That belief arises from the belief in separation from God. So we are living in a time now where we are getting to heal that belief that we're separate beings. And if you look astrally, if you can see clairvoyantly into the astral realms, you'll see fibers of energy connecting everything to everything. There is literally no separation. It looks from our physical vision like one body ends here, another body begins over there. But we're all connected with this like a spider web of energy filaments. you could say. And so things are happening as predicted, but more slowly. And you could say, well, that's Mother Earth and Father God giving us more time to heal ourselves and not be thrust into this fifth dimensional Earth, like hanging on for dear life, that kind of thing.
Right. Well,
And it's still true that probably 3/4 of humanity are not going to make it through the shift. And that's okay. It's a tragedy on the human level. But from a higher point of view, the souls that don't make it through this shift are going to go to another planet that's better suited to their level of vibration. This is prophecy that's been given out for 20 years or more. And it's true. And we can see it every day. We see that there's this divergence, harmonic divergence taking place, where we have one group of souls that are on a path of ascension, working on themselves, meditating, doing breathing and yoga, and eating healthy food, and that's one path. And then we see this other path, which, not to be the least bit judgmental, but to simply observe that these are lost souls. They are confused, point where they realize that their own consciousness is creating their experience of reality. I don't say your thoughts create your reality. That's too simplistic. It's not entirely true. It's part of the truth. I say the quality of your consciousness determines your experience of reality. And that's true collectively and individually. So at any rate, there's a lot of lost souls that they don't know what they're looking for. They latch onto the latest trend, the latest celebrity, the latest guru. Somebody offers them something and they fall for it. They don't really go within and check it out for themselves. So that's about 3/4 of the population. And we love them, we bless them, we send them on their way. We're not here to save anybody, especially souls that don't want to be saved. But we're nevertheless sending love and compassion to all life forms on Earth, including those that aren't going to make it through the shift.
I like the terms, the sinkhole of indifference, which is what it appears that there's just a large group of people that haven't taken a side, that haven't made a choice, that haven't chosen who to serve, and then there's that group of people that are so obviously only in it for themselves, that will walk all over anyone else, that will manipulate anyone else to get what they want. And we see that
it every day.
And we see this dichotomy happening, and more, especially when we watch TV or when we watch what's happening in the world. And so my first question is, when we're awakening to the oneness and we enter into this feeling of consciousness of love, and then when we turn on the TV and we see the terrible things that are happening, the wars, the brutality, how spiritually, what sort of techniques do you have to deal with that, to address those disharmonies in the world?
Well, first of all, as everyone in the world of spiritual growth knows, change starts within. So we have to first turn to ourselves. When the 2001 9/11 thing happened, my very first response when I saw it happening was, I guess it's time to deal with our inner terrorist. Most people would say, oh, come on, I don't have an inner terrorist, But really, if we go deep into our subconscious mind, we do see a reflection in the outer world. I mean, the whole election thing in America, it's like these candidates are reflecting something in our own consciousness that we need to look at. And if we hate this one or we hate that one, whoa, wait a minute, let's go within and let's start with our own self-hatred. Maybe this candidate is portraying egomaniac, greedy, selfish energies or whatever. How do I feel about those parts of myself that are greedy and self-interest, and maybe I'm a little bit less greedy than the so-called power elite, but that doesn't mean that I don't have to go within and start with myself. So it does start with doing techniques to clear the subconscious mind. That's where timeline healing comes in. That's where the Silva method, where I started in the 70s, came in. We're reprogramming our subconscious mind. We're clearing out the core negative beliefs, including there's not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, there's not enough love in the world is not safe. All of these belief systems have to be cleared out. And when we clear them, then we no longer see an unsafe world, or if we see it, we don't react to it. It's like, okay, there's a war going on over there. There's people killing each other. My job is to send love and compassion, to not ignore it and pretend it's not happening. No, that's denial. That doesn't work. But to just say, okay, now that I've cleared my inner war, I can offer peace. And so, various therapy and healing techniques, I think, are essential. We all need to work on ourselves. And there's a lot of people out there, they get it intellectually and they think, oh, that's all I need to do is just get it intellectually. I'm gonna take, I watched The Secret. Now I'm healed, or something like that.
Right. Well, you address some different aspects in the books that I found fascinating. About once every 4 or 5 months, I'll see a post on Facebook or something where somebody says, oh, we're going to go through the 3 days of darkness. It's going to be a terrible, horrible thing. And then you actually address, like, you talked to your guides and asked them, are we going to experience 3 days of darkness? And you had an answer. So, tell us, is there going to be a 3 days of darkness when we do the shift?
No, this is a misunderstanding of an ancient prophecy. There is an event which we call the electromagnetic null zone. I mentioned this in my earlier books, and it's mentioned in, J.J. Hurtak's The Keys of Enoch and other books. And it's really an area of space where the electromagnetic field is not as polarized as it normally is. And when you're in this weaker electromagnetic field, it's kind of like the veils are lifted, the frequency barrier around the Earth kind of drops away. And it's really not 3 days, it's really 150 years approximately. The area, the band that the Earth goes through takes about 150 years to go through it. I call it the galactic shift. Some people call it the photon belt, but the electromagnetic null zone is probably a more accurate term, because it is a period where the polarity of the electromagnetic field drops on the Earth, and it creates like an opening of a doorway or a stargate or a portal into the higher dimensions, and it kind of lifts the Earth into a higher state, which it then permanently remains in. It's like a spiral. It comes around. Every time the Earth comes around, it's at a higher vibration than the last time that it comes around. I'm really going quickly because I know we have limited time on these concepts. But if you read the earlier books, Earth Changes and Beyond is probably the best book, because it goes into some detail on these shifts. And this one's called The Galactic Shift. And the exciting part is that it peaks in around the year 2025. So we're just like about 1 year away from the peak of the galactic shift. And this is one reason things are getting so crazy in the world. The people are not knowing how to handle the shift in energy that's taking place on the Earth, the ascension of the Earth, if you will. And so it's bringing up people's negativity, and it's manifesting in bizarre ways.
Well, one thing I'm seeing is there's greater empathy that seems to play out in more conflict. Like people are more concerned about an issue that comes about. Everybody sees it, and then they're traumatized, and they speak out against it. They go and protest against it, because before they didn't see themselves in others, and suddenly they're starting to see themselves. This awakening to the oneness in all is part of the conflict that we see, because it's traumatic to see other people going through terrible things, because we're seeing ourselves go through terrible things.
And one big important point here is what I would call neutrality. It's the ability to not take sides in the issues of the day. The so-called power elite, and I always put so-called whenever I talk about them, because they don't really deserve to be called power elite. They are worshiping false power. False power is the need to control and manipulate others. If I have true power, why would I need to control anybody? I've
Right.
already got the power of God is within me. Why would I need to control other people or enslave them or feed them propaganda and brainwashing, which almost all the media and all the world does? I would have no need to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what we're looking at is how to be empathic and feel the suffering of the world, but as the Buddha would say, practice compassionate detachment. This means I feel the suffering, I see the suffering, I, I, I have compassion for the suffering, but I'm not the suffering. I'm this vast, creative, spiritual being, and here's the human suffering in this little ball, this little bubble contained within this larger reality of who I am, who you are, who we are. And that's the shift that people need to make, but they can't make it if they're being polarized by the so-called forces that be, pitting one, the whites against the blacks, the gays against the straights, whoever it is, the Israelis against the Palestinians, all of these divisions, all of this separation, that these beings are promoting that. The so-called power elite or dark cabal or whatever you want to call them are promoting this division and separation because of their illusion of control. And they say, well, if we have the people fighting among themselves, then they won't come after us and we can maintain our illusion of control over this planet.
Exactly.
And it is an illusion because the only reason they seem to have power is because people believe in them. They believe they have power. And an illusion is something which only seems to be true as long as you believe in it. Once you withdraw your belief in it, it disappears. It was an illusion. Truth, of course, is that which is actually so regardless of belief. So it's really a question of separating truth from illusion.
Yeah. One fascinating thing that you've discussed extensively in your books is soulmates and the idea of relationships beyond incarnations. And you really bring a lot of information that I was not aware of into this topic. A lot of people believe, oh, my soulmate's out there. There's a misbelief, a myth. I feel a lot of people say, oh, I met my soulmate last night. And it doesn't necessarily work like that. It's
no, it doesn't.
Yeah. So explain from your perspective and the knowledge that you've gained of how soulmates work and the different terms that are used in your own experience.
Yes, and this information is explored in depth in the book Slow Integration. Obviously, we don't have time to go into great depth on how it works.
Of course.
But basically, there are multiple soulmates. We all have many soulmates. A soulmate is really anybody that you feel a deep soul connection with. But we have only one twin flame, and this is what I think people are confused about. The twin flame is almost always in the higher dimensions, guiding us while we go through our earthly incarnations. And this is simply we came out in what we call twin flame pairs out of the oversoul. And it's a process that's described in the books. There's an oversoul, there's a monad, there's 3 levels above that. And as we descended in vibration out of the Godhead, we split into typically 6 twin flame pairs. So this is a base 12 universe. We divide into 12s. So there are 12 members to our oversoul, and there are 12 oversouls in our monad. And again, this is all explained in the book. I don't want to go into too much detail.
That's fine. We got time.
Most of us have a twin flame in the higher dimensions that's guiding us, that actually orchestrates our human relationships. Not all of them. Sometimes we don't listen to our higher guidance and we get involved with somebody and, oh my God, what did I do? That sort of thing. But as we get to a higher level of consciousness, we start meeting members of our soul family that are on the earth. And in the case of what I call primary soul family, that's 12 souls. Usually about half of them are in the higher dimensions, half are in the lower dimensions. And then we have what are called secondary soul family. This is 144 souls. There'd be like 72 in the higher and 72 in the lower typically. There's variations. And then we have the extended soul family, which is a 12 by 12 by 12 matrix of souls. And many times we meet members of our soul family, and it's a very deep connection. We feel it's like, wow, I've known you my whole life and we've only been talking for 5 minutes. It's that kind of a feeling, completing each other's sentences, that sort of thing. Those are usually soul family connections where we emerge from the same oversoul or monad or higher level. And again, it's a little bit complicated. It is a base 12 system, and we all have an oversoul and a monad. That's our level 8 and 9 density self, the soul being level 7 of our being. And then we have what are called the 6 lower bodies, which are the ones that go out of alignment that need healing. And this is all in the soul integration material. So the 3 gross bodies, which we're all familiar with, the physical, emotional, and mental, and then the 3 subtle bodies, astral, etheric, and causal. Now, in some teachings, they only break those into 4 bodies, but in my teachings, I have 6 bodies that I break this into. And so the process of soul integration is bringing your lower bodies together by healing them so that they can work together to align with the soul's free will or the soul's divine will, which because free will eventually becomes God's will. And contrary to popular belief, you are more free when you're aligned with God's will than when you're aligned with your own personal will. Right. There's greater freedom. A lot of people think, oh, I have to surrender to God, and God's going to take over my life, and I no longer have free will. And that's not the case. You've simply merged into a higher reality, which we call God's will.
So in your book, you kind of discussed that there's actually not a lot of twin flames that have met physically incarnated on Earth. There's this myth that there's all these people say, I met my twin flame. That is actually fairly rare.
Extremely rare. They're telling me right now there are 43 twin flame pairs on the Earth right now that are together, that are in relationship, 43. And about 130 altogether. That means a lot of them are not in relationship, but they're both on the Earth at the same time. And the reason why this is frowned upon from a higher perspective is because we need all the help we can get to free ourselves from the matrix, the beliefs of the society. And so when we have a strong connection to a beloved in the higher realms, pulling us up, pulling us out of the drama of duality, the Leela, the Maya, the illusion, it's much easier than if we're both here on the Earth at the same time, possibly getting stuck in the Maya, the illusion.
Right. You also wrote a fascinating book on time travel and time in general. And you've discussed, the origins of the Earth. This is stuff I'm super fascinated by. So my first initial question, so time travel is possible. There are beings and entities that can travel time?
Yes, and there are rules, you have to avoid time paradoxes and violations of free will. And so there are rules in time travel. And, there are even beings called karmic guardians that are tasked with making sure that these violations don't occur because it can affect the integrity of the physical universe. Think about, I can go back and prevent Kennedy's assassination. There's actually a movie on that topic. Yeah. And imagine if you could do that, how unstable our current life would be. And of course, we see in Star Trek and other sci-fi shows people manipulating the timeline, and and now the captain's got a beard, and then the other timeline he didn't. This kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And that's Hollywood, of course.
Right.
It is a violation. But to some degree, we are able to influence the timeline, and a small percentage of the Mandela effects appear to be real, where it does look like somehow the timeline changed and this is no longer the way we remember it. And all the indications are that it's always been the new way, even though we know there was an old way that something was. So that's a whole other topic. But and it exists because time is multidimensional. It's not linear. Linear is only one dimension of time. There's other dimensions of time, just like there's other dimensions of space. And so we have to realize that in my book, I have a complicated diagram with an X, Y, Z axis on it. And it has the linear time, and then it has vertical time, and then it has parallel time frames or parallel time layers.
Mhm.
And I do my best to explain a very difficult subject. This is leading edge physics. It's
Yeah.
difficult to explain in words. And there's several scientists out there that some I'd recommend. One is Nassim Haramein. I recommend his work. And there's, I think, Brian Greene and superstring theory. And there's many others, too, that have postulated these things. There's a guy by the name of Julian Barber, who postulated that the world is full of still, and the only thing that actually moves is awareness. And I kind of subscribe to that. It looks like I'm moving my hand, but in reality, I'm moving my consciousness and viewing my hand from different reference points.
Oh.
But it happens so fast, it looks like motion is external to us.
It's super fascinating. Another topic that, like I had mentioned, tell me a little bit about what you're aware of our galactic formation, the different entities that may have influenced the creation of Earth. We've had many extraterrestrial presences upon the Earth that have played an influence in the creation and development of the Earth over time that you document in your book.
Right. In the real history of Earth, I go into this a little bit, but the humanoid form began about 900 million years ago in the Lyra Vega star system. And then the Homo sapiens of these modern bodies that we're inhabiting started about 100 million years ago in the Pleiades. And then the first successful large-scale civilization on the Earth was about 10 million years ago. So during the dinosaurs and other periods, we had colonies of humanoids that came to the Earth and started colonizing the Earth, but there were different reasons why it never took off until about 10 million years ago. The land of Pan or Pangea, it's got different names for that first civilization before the continents broke apart and stuff like that. And then we had Lemurian Atlantis much more recently in the timeline. And but the founders, my spirit guides, the founders, level 12 beings, were involved in engineering the human DNA. I hate to say we are laboratory rats, but in a way we kind of are here on Earth.
We are, yeah.
Our DNA has been manipulated by at least 23 different extraterrestrial races throughout our history. And our history as Homo sapiens, 100 million years old. They found artifacts on the Earth that basically prove all of this. Of course, the mainstream hushes it up, ridicules the scientists to find out this stuff. But nevertheless, we've been around for a very long time. As souls, most of us started coming into the humanoid forms shortly after they were made, so that we could experience these levels and dimensions of reality more directly. That's the whole purpose of a physical body. So many of our souls are 80 to 100 million years old as individual souls. We existed before that, but not as individual souls. And so we came in maybe 80 to 100 million years ago and started exploring the different worlds, what I call third through sixth density worlds in different parts of the galaxy, and in some cases in other galaxies, such as Andromeda. And so the history of a soul is a long and fascinating journey to see all the places we've been, all the different worlds we've incarnated into. Most of the souls I work with have had 2,000 to 3,000 incarnations, but only a tiny fragment of that on Earth, typically between 30 and 100 lifetimes on Earth. but maybe 2,000-3,000 lifetimes on other planets. So we really are cosmic star seeds, if you use the broad definition of that word.
It's true. But I get the feeling, and maybe it's biased because I'm living it and I'm in it, that something special is sort of happening on Earth. That this is a unique and special
It's a
experimentation.
very unique and special time, and I mentioned when we were just starting how amazing it is that we can use technology to reach hundreds of thousands of people, at the push of a few buttons. And 50 years ago, we couldn't do that, and certainly during Jesus' time, we couldn't do that. He reached a few hundred souls directly, and then a few thousand indirectly, and that because we didn't have telecommunications and internet and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is an amazing time to be on the earth, and we are making a difference. It is absolutely true. I think everybody who's listening and watching has seen the movie "It's a Wonderful Life" that comes out every year at Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the guardian angel shows the lead character what his life what the world would have looked like if he had never been born. And it was so radically different and mostly negative. And that's true. Every one of us has made a tremendous difference in the outer reality, what we call outer reality. And even now, right now, at this very moment, because we're all connected, we're sending out signals all over the planet, and people on the other side of the earth are being affected by our consciousness, even though we might say, yeah, right, but it's true.
Yeah, and so I also wanted to briefly discuss, I think it's your most recent book, The Secrets of Unlimited Energy. And you talk about what for many could be a shocking topic, that we can have unlimited energy now, and it is possible. And there's a lot of myths about energy. We've been told that energy is limited. And so what inspired you to write that book? And how can we utilize that information?
Well, I've been studying this topic for a while, and in one of Nassim Haramehn's papers, he talks about how the entire universe exists inside every proton of every atom, which
Mm-hmm.
basically is proving that we live in a holographic universe, which many other scientists, Talbot, or however you say his name, and others have talked about the holographic universe. So basically, he came up with a formula, and it's in 1 cubic centimeter of empty space. That's the size of a sugar cube. There is approximately 10 to the 94th power joules of potential energy, or let's say 10 to the 91st power watts, just to give people, because people are more familiar with watts. And again, these are approximate numbers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number 1 with 91 zeros after it. The available energy in 1 cubic centimeter of empty space. So basically, the idea that we're living in a world with energy scarcity, that's probably the biggest lie that we've been fed by the so-called power elite, is that there's a shortage of energy. There is no shortage of energy. There's a shortage of people who understand how to use that energy in a harmonious way, perhaps. So another topic in the book is physical immortality, which is a topic which I studied with Leonard Orr many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not so far-fetched. All you have to do to maintain an eternally youthful body for as long as you desire is to balance the energy coming in with the energy going out. That means regenerating the cells that die or break down, infusing them with new prana or life force energy to generate new cells to replace the ones that have degraded. This is basic, energy in equals energy out science. This is not complicated. But we have to examine all the ways that we dissipate energy, all the ways that we run out of energy in our bodies without replenishing it and regenerating it. So in the second half of the book, I go into detail on the things which cause us to age and decay and grow old and die, versus that which reinvigorates us, which regenerates us. And so we have a list of things we can do to increase our energy and a list of things we can do to decrease the degradation of energy. So it's all very scientific, but I keep it simple. The mathematics is very, very minimal in the book, and anybody can understand the little tiny bit of mathematics that's in the book.
Well, yeah, the great thing that the book did for me was it destroyed the myth that, yes, I believe that there's unlimited energy, but there's also this belief that on Earth that it's just not possible, and maybe thousands of years from now we can reach a point where we have unlimited energy. But no, it really makes you believe that we can do this now, that this is something to embrace the idea that right now on this Earth we can create a situation that where we can have this unlimited energy. It is
But first, we
possible.
have to let go of our belief in separation and the ego, which arises from that belief, which wants to control everything and everyone. We have to work on that first, because otherwise we're going to continue to have inventors get assassinated and silenced and ridiculed, and their inventions stolen by a big corporation, like what happened to Nikola Tesla, for example.
Right. And he was creating unlimited energy. He was developing wonderful technologies that could do that. So,
But it wasn't profitable enough for
no.
the big boys,
Right. So perhaps something will come along and they'll be able to go beyond just the system, the marketplace, and they'll be able to move beyond it. And I believe that. And so
it's coming.
it's coming.
As our consciousness rises, eventually it'll reach a certain level where these devices will be able to flourish on the earth. But right now, 90% of humanity believes in lack and scarcity. So you're not going to have like unlimited energy manifest in that environment. It would violate the law of cause and effect.
Right, which makes sense. Now, one of the techniques that you've really developed that has helped a lot of people is timeline healing. And I would like to get a little more background on how that works and how I can
Yes.
heal timelines.
Basically, you go back in time to versions of yourself that experienced trauma, and you give a healing to those past selves in real time, meaning that from the point of view of the past self, they're being visited by beings from the future, namely you coming back in time from the future. So it's an interesting idea that you have to deal with time loops and things like that. But basically, during the timeline healing process, you go into a deep meditation and you go back in time and you meet your past self. Usually you appear like golden angels or being of light or something like that in front of your past self. And then you give the past self a healing using the formulas that we have developed in the trainings. And you reprogram the subconscious mind, and then you remove the negative imprints of those traumatic experiences from the past. So it's a little like past life regression and hypnotherapy and the Silva method and a little bit of theta healing, all kind of combined with some unique things that are specific to timeline healing. So we do trainings all over the world, train people how to become timeline healers. And the next ones are coming up in a week or so in Russia, a couple weeks from now in Russia. I'm not going to go to Russia in person. It's going to be online. And then we're doing some events in Bulgaria, where I do plan on being in person. And usually a couple times a year, I go to different countries to teach this. More and more now, with all the problems with travel and all the stuff that's gone on, I do more online events. But we do a certain number of online and a certain number of in person. And there's 3 levels to timeline healing: level 1, and then level 2, level 3. And then there's a teacher training that usually happens once or twice a year, where we train people on how to become timeline healing teachers. So it's a very powerful therapy. In my humble opinion, it's many times more powerful than traditional psychotherapy. And I've been told this by a lot of people who've had that experience, that One person came to me and said, I've been in psychotherapy for years, every week, year after year, going week. And I did one timeline healing, and I felt like I accomplished more than years of psychotherapy. And that's not an isolated incident. That many people say that. And part of the reason why is because we don't just work on the physical, emotional, and mental. We also work on the astral, etheric, and causal levels. And we work on past lives. We're not limited to early childhood trauma like many psychotherapy programs are.
Right. So, how many cases do you have where somebody's traumatized from a past life? I'm finding that more and more,
Quite a
maybe as the
few.
veil lifts, more people are becoming more aware of their past life, and they're
Indeed.
trying to deal with those traumas.
Yeah, I would say, it's about 50-50, actually. The people I work with, about half the traumas are from this life and about half are from past lives. As a general rule, obviously it varies from client to client. And part of that is because many of us have done work on our past lives in our past lives. I get people coming into sessions, and the Akashic records basically tell me, oh, this person only has 2% of their soul lessons to complete. They've completed 98% of their soul lessons, and they're working on the last 2%. That's common, actually, 2, 3, 4% unresolved karma. And in many cases, they come in with very little past life karma. Maybe they've created a little bit of new karma in this life. And then the other thing is that most of the children coming in now are star seeds, meaning that they've had almost all of their lifetimes in other worlds and very few lifetimes on the earth. And so they come in with very little karma. Maybe they have some past life karma from another planet. But it's generally low karma souls that are being born now on the earth. Some of them are brand new to the earth. This is their first lifetime on earth, but they've got thousands of lifetimes in other worlds. So that's part of the dispensation that's happening. Is that first we had the indigos, then we had the crystal children, then the rainbow children. Now we have the star seeds.
So has there been a change fundamentally as we go through this shift in the nature of karma? It feels like karma has changed.
Yes, it has. It used to be that in order to ascend, in order to get off the wheel of karma, you almost had to be perfect, and now it's been relaxed. You don't have to be completely perfect on the human level, which is pretty much impossible, in order to ascend, to get off the wheel of reincarnation. You basically do have to forgive people from your past. You do have to see beyond the attack, revenge, tit for tat kind of cycle. The Israelis and Palestinians have been at war for thousands of years off and on. That has to all go away in order for souls to liberate themselves. But you don't have to be, oh my God, I had one negative thought, I guess I can't ascend. No, it's not like that.
But it used to be, right? That
it kind of used to be, pretty much.
And there was
it was pretty hard to do.
You called it a dispensation. That was
it's
change.
Kind of like the rules of the computer program change. It's an upgrade to the computer program. It was too difficult for people to get off the wheel of reincarnation, so the creator modified the game a little bit, or hired his programmers, which we call creator gods, to rewrite portions of the program. So it's still everything is God, but within everything is God, there are the programmers of the virtual reality that we live in. That's a whole nother topic we don't have time to go into.
Right. Well, I just want to thank you. We could literally talk for hours and hours more because you cover so many amazing topics. And I'm honored gonna get a chance to read some of your books. So keep an eye on everybody, and I'll make sure to put links for where you can get in contact and find Sal's books. I'm so excited for some of you who may not have heard of Sal, because suddenly you have access to all of these amazing books and this incredible information. It will blow your mind. There's amazing topics and amazing ways to heal yourself and learn more about your soul and the world like with anything, and Sal will tell you, with anything with information like this, go with what resonates with you. I found this information to resonate. It wasn't like I was reading something, oh, that's interesting. It was like, oh, I remember. And when I'm
Mhm.
reading Sal's stuff, it's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I knew that. And that's why I was so drawn and attracted to this information.
Well, it's been
So,
a real pleasure talking
yeah.
with you. I'm glad we managed to do this finally. I just want to acknowledge all the work you've done to get metaphysical information out to people. In case there's anybody listening who's not familiar with your work until now, you have a treasure house of things that you've done.
Hey, it's like with you, it's fun. I enjoy this. It's
Mhm.
fun to open up and unlock the secrets of the world and see people heal, and it's helping me to heal myself as I do this. Just I'm sure as
Of course,
you find that
that's
it's
one of those benefits. You know, I'm kind of forced to be disciplined because I work with so many people.
right. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we can get a chance to talk some more as we expand and discuss some of the information that you write about in detail. And so, thank you so much, and welcome to the Reality Revolution.
And thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
We return you now to your local announcers.